it says the volume V of a cone is 1/3 the product of the area of the base of the height. Okay, and we've already discussed that. Okay, all right. So now here, let's find the volume of a cone. To find the volume of a cone, we're going to round our answers to the nearest tenth place. Okay, so it says the diameter in this particular cone is from here to here is 4 meters. But we need R, okay, the radius, which would be 2, half of the diameter. So that V is equal to 1/3 B times H, okay? So now we have 1/3, we plug in our R from this particular shape, which would be 2, square it, and then our height, which is 6, okay? So now, when we say 2 squared, that is 4. We take a third, let's get our calculator here and show you how this is done. Okay, it's 2 squared is 4. Okay, got that? Now we take a third of it divided by 3. Okay, then we multiply it by 6 and we have 7.9. That's where the 8 comes from. 8 pi. We haven't done anything with pi. We save pi to the very end. Then we multiply it times 3.14, and therefore we get our 25.1. Okay? All right. So tricky with that pi, okay? Let's move on to this particular shape here. It says find the height of the cone around to the nearest tenth, okay? Here they gave us a volume, they gave us a formula, they gave us our base, our radius that is, okay? And we need to find our height, okay? So this was 9 squared, which was 81. A third of it is 27 pi times h. It's at this point we would need to say 27 times 3.14. Then divide it out, do the multiple inverse on this side and multiple inverse on this side to get h. Let's take a look at how that looks. So once we got to 27 times 3.14, then we said 84.78, okay? We said it times pi. All right, so now we take that, which is basically 85. We're going to clear this out. Take our 956 divided by 85. There we are. That's where we get this value from. Okay? All right. Now, let's move forward. Let's look at our examples. We're going to work these examples out together. Okay? All right. So now, we want to find the volume. It says find the volume or the height of the cone and round to the nearest tenth. So here we have our cone and we have our height. All right, so we have 1/3 the base times the height, and since it's a cone, it's actually 1/3 pi r squared times h. That's what we're dealing with. Okay, so let's take our 1/3. Our r in this case is 6, so we have 6 squared pi h. Okay, in this case, our h we know to be 15. Okay, so now here we go. 6 squared is 36, so 1/3 of 36 pi times 15, okay? So then when we take a third of 26, that is 12 pi times 15, okay? So now we multiply our 12 times our pi, okay? So that 12 times our 15, 12 times 15 is going to give us, should be, 180 pi, okay? And then it's at this point we say we take our 180 times 3.14 and we get 565.2 centimeters cubed. Okay, all right, so now let's move on to our next one. And our next example, we do not know what h is. We know what our radius is and we know what our volume is, okay? So our formula looks like this. Our volume is equal to 1/3 pi r squared, which is our base, times h. Okay, so then here it tells us that our volume is 7,200 is equal to 1/3. Our R is 15 squared pi. Our H we do not know. Okay, so 7,200 is equal to 1/3. All right, so we have 15 times 15, which gives us 225. Okay, pi times H. Okay, so at this point we want to take a third of the 225, so we divide it by 3 and we get 75. So 7,200 equals 75 pi H. It's at this point that we need to go ahead and multiply our 3.14, okay, because it's in here. All right, if it had a pi at the end of it, it wouldn't be in here. We would just divide both sides by 75. But because there's no pi over here, then we know that this amount includes 3.14. So we need to include it on this side in order to take it out. Okay, so 7,200 is equal to 75 times 3.14 is 235.5 times H. So now we divide both sides by 235.5, and H is equal to, so let's take our 72 divided by 235.5, and we have 30.6. Okay, and that is equal to our H. Okay, and that's how that's done. All right, let's take a look here at our real life example here. Here we have a hourglass where the sand goes out. It's like a timer. Okay, all right, so now it says you must answer a trivial question before the sand in the timer falls to the bottom. The sand falls at a rate of 50 cubic millimeters per second. How much time do you have to answer the question? So you're going to use a formula for the volume of a cone to find the volume of the sand in the timer. So V is equal to 1/3 base times the height. Here you have 1/3, all right, and here you have your radius and you have your height, okay? So therefore you have 10 squared times 24. So therefore you have 800 pi equals 2,512. Well, once you know the total amount that's falling through, and it takes 50 per cubic millimeters, then you take that total of, and then you divide it by your 50, and you end up with the number of seconds that you have left to answer your question. Okay, so now let's take a look here at number 3. It says in example 3, this one here, the sand falls at a rate of 60 cubic centimeters per second. How much time do you have to answer the question? Well, we already know that it has 2,512 left. So we just take this 2,512, and instead of dividing it by 50 to see how many seconds we have left, we would divide it by 60. Okay, so then when we do that, we have 2,512 divided by 60, and we have about 42 seconds left. Okay, all right, let's look at 4. 4 says in example 3, still referring to this one, the height of the sand in the timer is 12 millimeters, and the radius is 5. How much time do you have to answer the question? So now that changes our formula altogether, okay, because it says the radius is 5. So our formula says 1/3, and we have 5, okay, which is square pi, and it says our height is 12, okay? All right, so then we would go through the process, and we have 1/3, and this is 25 pi times 12. So we would take the 25 and divide it by 3, which would give us an 8.3. So we have 8.3 pi times 12. That would be times 12, which would give us a 99.99, which is ultimately 100. So we would take that times pi times 3.14, and we would get basically 314, okay? And so now, if that be the case, then we want to know if it's 50 seconds, okay, then how much time do we have left to answer the question. So we would take this 3 and divide it by 50, and divide this by 50, and we have approximately 6.3 seconds left to answer the question. Cones. All right, so let's take a look at number 2. It says, find the volume of a cone, round your answer to the nearest tenth. Okay, so here we know our formula is 1/3 pi r squared times h. Okay, so then let's take a look. Here we would take our 1/3, r is 3 squared, and our h is times 11. Okay, so our 1/3 would give us 9 times pi times 11. Not forget that pi. All right, so a third of this would be 3 pi times 11, so it would be 33 pi. And then when we multiply 33 times 3.14, we get 103.62 feet cubed, okay? Number 5. Okay, I'm going to do number 4 because of this, okay? And you just have a bonus one, okay? So let's take a look. This is 300 pi, and I did this because the volume has pi in the answer, and none of the others have that as an example. So that's why I need to do this, okay? So here we have a radius of 12. So we have 1/3, and we have 12 squared pi h, okay? So 300 pi is equal to 1/3 of 144 pi h, okay? So let's take that 144 divided by 3, we get 48. So 300 pi is equal to 48 pi h. And because this has pi, we're going to do this. We are going to do the inverse of 48 pi to both sides, okay? Ultimately, there's nothing to do with this. This cancels out. So it's 300 divided by 48. So 300 divided by 48, and you get 6.25. So 6.25 is equal to h, okay? Now let's move on to number 6, okay? On number 6, once again, here, this is 4 for the entire diameter. We only need 2, which is half of diameter is the radius. So 1/3, and we have 2 squared pi, and then h, okay, which happens to be 7. So I'm going to put a 7 here, okay? So this is 1/3, 4 pi 7, okay? So then 4 divided by 3 is 1.33. So this is 1.33 pi times 7. So we're going to multiply this times the 7 to give us 9.33. So we have 9.33 pi. And so when we multiply 9.33 times 3.14, then we have 29.3 is our answer, inches cubed. Okay? All right. See you shortly.